They sent me a refugee bride from space. Until I learned she was hiding royal blood, he was standing on the observation deck of Port Harmony, watching cargo drones drift like slow insects against Earth's thin orbital haze. The station was old by modern standards, built during humanity's cautious early years in space, when no one was sure if the galaxy would welcome them or erase them. Elias liked it for that reason. It was quiet, forgotten, much like himself. He was a systems engineer, the kind who fixed problems before alarms noticed them, not important enough for speeches, not useless enough to be fired. When the summons arrived on his wrist terminal, stamped with the seal of the United Earth Liaison Office, he assumed it was a mistake. By the time he reached the administrative wing, he knew it was not. A small group of officials waited behind a glass table, their expressions carefully neutral. A hollow display hovered between them, showing lines of interstellar law and unfamiliar alien script. "Mr. Ward," the senior official said, folding her hands, "thank you for coming on short notice. You said this was mandatory. Marriage. You live planetside near controlled infrastructure. You are stable, compliant, and unlikely to draw attention." A transport shuttle eased into the dock, its hull marked with coalition symbols and humanitarian tags. Medical drones hovered nearby, silent and watchful. The bay doors opened. She stepped out slowly, escorted by two alien officials who never touched her. She was tall, though slightly shorter than Elias, with pale skin that held a faint silver tone under the lights. Her hair was long and dark, bound in a simple tie at her back. Her clothing was plain, almost severe, designed to hide rather than express. A refugee, Elias reminded himself. That was what the file had said. Her eyes lifted and met his. They were steady, too steady. "This is Celira," one of the officials said. "Designation, displaced civilian. Status, bonded transfer." She answered questions politely, never asked any of her own, and spent most of the trip watching the planet grow beneath them. When Elias tried to explain where they were going, what his home was like, she listened closely as if memorizing details. She did not act afraid. Back on Earth, the process moved fast. Legal confirmations, medical scans, identity registration. The marriage contract was signed digitally, witnessed by two human officials and one coalition observer who seemed bored with the entire affair. "You are now legally bonded," the observer said. "Protection protocols apply. Any harm to the bonded individual will be treated as harm to a citizen." So it seems. That night Elias lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the unfamiliar sound of another person breathing in his home. He told himself this was temporary, a duty, something that would end quietly. He was wrong. Over the next few days he noticed small things. Celira moved through the city like someone trained to avoid attention, yet she never seemed lost. She learned Earth customs quickly, too quickly, and adapted her speech patterns with careful precision. When Elias explained how public transport worked, she already knew the routes. Once at a market, a vendor made a rude comment about aliens. Celira did not react, but Elias did. He snapped back, sharper than he meant to. Later, he apologized for losing his temper. "You defended me," she said. "That is unusual." Curious, Elias dug deeper. He expected an error, maybe outdated coalition software. What he found instead made his hands go cold. Celira's biometric ID was encrypted behind a level of security Elias had only ever seen once before, during a classified repair job involving a visiting galactic envoy. The encryption keys were not civilian. They were not even military. They were royal. Elias stared at the data, hoping he had misread it. He checked again, then a third time. There was no mistake. He closed the terminal and sat in silence, listening to the distant sound of waves against the city's shore. His mind raced through possibilities, all of them dangerous. A knock came at his door. "Elias," Celira said softly, "may I come in?" She stood there, calm as ever, hands folded, eyes watching his face with unsettling clarity. "You know," she said. He swallowed. "You're not a refugee." Because no one looks here, she said. And because you were chosen precisely because you would survive long enough to ask that question. The knowledge sat heavy in his chest. Royal encryption, hidden identity, lies layered with care. Every rule of survival told him to report this immediately. And yet he did not. By morning, the city was alive with sound. Traffic hummed. Birds cried from metal rails. Life went on, unaware that a secret capable of shaking star empires was quietly drinking tea in his apartment. Celira joined him in the kitchen just after sunrise. She moved with the same calm grace as before, but now Elias noticed the control in every step, the awareness behind every glance. "You did not turn me in," she said, not as a question. Elias poured coffee with shaking hands. "I didn't know who to call." That was wise. We were inconvenient. They assumed humans wouldn't notice. Elia's engineering instincts screamed warning. That evening, Celira stood near the door, her expression distant. "They have begun confirming my location. If neither bends, they will test your defenses." 2 inspectors arrived that afternoon. One human, one alien. The human smiled too much. The alien did not smile at all. They sat in the living room, polite and slow, asking questions about domestic harmony, integration progress, and Celira's comfort level. She answered perfectly, her voice soft, her posture compliant. Too perfect. Elias noticed the alien inspector watching her hands, her eyes, her breathing, testing. Then came the question. Has the bonded individual displayed any unusual knowledge or behavior inconsistent with refugee status? The alien asked. Elias felt Celira's gaze brush his mind like a warning. "No," he said. "She's adapting well." "Do you feel adequately prepared to protect her?" "That makes them dangerous." "Hide me deeper." The next probe came 3 days later, this time digital. Elias caught it slipping through Earth's customs database, disguised as a harmless audit. He traced it, quietly rerouting data, feeding it false confirmations. Celira stood beside him as he worked. "You lie very well," she observed. "We call it bureaucracy," he said. "It scares everyone." "You must understand something." Her face went pale. "They have issued a retrieval order," she said. "Diplomatic force authorized." "I'm going to remind them why humans were labeled unpredictable." They requested docking permissions, inspection rights, and temporary enforcement authority under galactic law. On paper, it all looked clean and proper. On Earth, the requests vanished into queues. Automated systems responded with delays. Forms required additional verification. Jurisdiction conflicts appeared between Earth agencies that normally worked together without issue. Every answer took hours, then days. From the bridge of a coalition cruiser, an officer frowned at the growing stack of unanswered requests. "They are stalling," he said. "They are inefficient," his superior replied. "Humans always are." Screens glowed softly across the room, filled with maps, code, and old system diagrams. Elias moved between them with focused speed, his earlier fear replaced by something sharper and steadier. Celira watched him work. "These systems are ancient," she said. "Why use them?" Retired engineers, civilian network admins who still cared about the bones of Earth's infrastructure. He did not tell them everything. He did not need to. All he said was, "Something is wrong. I need eyes and hands." Shipping AIs began comparing sensor data, noticing shapes where no shapes should be. Earth's military did not mobilize. That was the clever part. No fleets launched. No weapons charged. Nothing that would trigger fear or legal retaliation. Instead, Earth watched. Celira stood near the window, her arms folded. "On my world," she said quietly, "power was always loud. This is different." Air traffic control flagged the deviation immediately. Civilian drones rerouted. Emergency procedures activated. The shuttle was forced to land outside the city, surrounded not by soldiers but by firefighters, police, and medical teams. The observers were escorted politely into a processing center and buried under local safety regulations. On the shuttle's bridge, a coalition officer stared at the delay notice. This is unacceptable. Not with tears or drama, just facts laid bare. Her family had ruled once, yes, but not as tyrants. They had broken cycles of war, refused resource hoarding, and protected weaker systems. When the larger empires expanded, her house became an obstacle, so they were erased. Royal blood frightens them, she said, because it reminds others that power can be different. Why were diplomatic teams being delayed for days over paperwork? The coalition sent a sharper message. Immediate compliance was demanded. Extradition of the bonded individual was required under emergency authority. Failure would result in consequences. The message was sent not just to Earth's government but to every major human network. That was a mistake. People read it. Commentators argued. Lawyers dissected the language. Engineers noticed the phrasing assumed human inferiority under galactic law. Humans did not like that. Sailira watched the feeds in silence. You are turning public attention toward me. Depends who's watching. Because someone powerful wants her erased. A second wave of ships moved closer, no longer hiding behind diplomatic masks. Their presence became obvious even to civilian sensors. They still did not fire. They expected Earth to fold. Instead, Earth's shipping lanes adjusted. Civilian traffic filled space with noise and movement. Mining operations flared engines at inconvenient times. Communication bands flooded with legal challenges and counterclaims. The galaxy watched, confused. Why wasn't Earth afraid? Sailira understood before they did. They think strength is measured in fleets, she said to Elias. You measure it in people. Almost crude. The message contained coordinates and a single line, we see you. Elias felt a chill. Sailira read it and nodded. They are done pretending. Awareness. In the dark between stars, coalition commanders stared at updated reports. Earth's military still had not moved, but something was wrong. Their scans were being watched, their maneuvers predicted. How? One demanded. No one answered. In Elias' apartment, Sailira placed a hand over the small seal embedded beneath her skin. If they reach me, she said, this will end badly. For everyone. We're risking it because someone decided we were small. The bonded individual would be removed under galactic authority. Any interference would be treated as hostile action. On paper, it was a threat. In reality, it was a mistake. Elias watched the message replay on his screen while the city outside slowly woke. Cars moved. Lights turned on. People went to work. Life continued, unaware that a line had been crossed. Sailira stood beside him, silent. She did not look afraid. That worried him more than panic ever could. They will not stop now, she said. They cannot. If they fail here, others will remember. Emergency injunctions cited treaty violations, jurisdiction abuse, and unlawful use of force against a protected individual. The coalition dismissed them. That dismissal was broadcast too. People noticed. Across Earth, conversations shifted. News feeds filled with analysis. Old veterans spoke quietly about foreign power. Engineers talked about systems and defenses. Ordinary people asked a simple question. Why was someone so desperate to take one person? Sailira watched from Elias' apartment as public opinion turned, slow but steady. You are making it impossible for them to act quietly, she said. That's the point, Elias replied. Sunlight makes bullies nervous. Not firing, not accelerating, just present. Their hulls reflected sunlight like polished knives. Earth's military still did not move. Instead, thousands of civilian objects filled the space around the planet. Cargo haulers adjusted course. Research platforms activated thrusters. Old stations rotated into new alignments. Nothing illegal, nothing aggressive, just crowded. Coalition navigators cursed softly as their clean approach vectors vanished into chaos. Every path forward required negotiation. Every maneuver risked collision. Their ships were powerful, but power meant little when surrounded by fragile objects you were not allowed to destroy. Sailira felt something unfamiliar tighten in her chest. They are trapped by their own rules, she said. Elias smiled faintly. We wrote those rules too, we just never used them like this. I just wasn't important until I refused to be small. Her existence destabilizes established order. No. Disappearances disguised as refugee programs. Patterns no one species could see alone, but humans could. They published it all. Across the galaxy, feeds exploded. Neutral worlds paused. Minor powers whispered. Old wounds reopened. Celira stared at the data scrolling across screens. You are tearing open secrets older than my life. They taught us to document everything. But necessary. I was hidden not for mercy but for erasure, she continued. Sent to a world deemed insignificant, harmless. Every coalition vessel found itself targeted by hundreds of small, civilian-marked platforms. Drones, tugs, satellites. Nothing that looked like a threat alone. Together they were everywhere. One wrong move would cause disaster, not for Earth, for them. Elias felt his breath catch as alarms filled coalition channels. Their ships were powerful but boxed in by law, optics, and physics. Celira finished her broadcast with quiet force. I choose Earth. They will not forget this, she said. No, Elias replied, but neither will anyone else. Neutral species demanded explanations for the refugee marriage program that now looked less like charity and more like a quiet graveyard. Earth stood at the center of it all, uncomfortable and unprepared for attention. Elias felt it first in the silence. No more drones hovering outside his building. No inspectors. No sudden messages. Just quiet, heavy and watchful like the pause after a storm. Celira remained with him, though everything about her situation had changed. She was no longer hidden. Her name was known. Her face had been broadcast across the stars. Yet in Elia's apartment she still made tea in the mornings and stood by the window at night, watching Earth slow spin beneath the sky. They will come again, she said one evening. Not with ships, with words. Words I can handle. The message was respectful, careful. It acknowledged her choice but made the expectation clear. A ruler belonged among the stars, not hiding on a young world. Celira read the message slowly, then set the device down. Elias waited, saying nothing. When I was young, she said at last, I was taught that duty came before desire. That a ruler's life was not their own. Humans had learned that some choices mattered more when left alone. Celira asked Elias to walk with her. They moved through the city unnoticed by most, just another pair among millions. Children played in a park. Vendors argued over prices. Life went on, stubborn and ordinary. This world does not kneel, Celira said softly. It does not ask permission to exist. For them, I choose alliance, not dominion, reform, not revenge. Earth was invited to lead. Earth declined. Instead, Earth proposed something radical: shared systems, open records, mutual defense without hierarchy. It confused the galaxy, but it worked. Months passed. Elias returned to his job, though returned was a loose term. His apartment became a meeting place for diplomats, engineers, and advisors who wanted to understand how a quiet world had outplayed empires. Celira became something new, not a queen, not a refugee, an ambassador without borders. She traveled when she wished, spoke when it mattered, and listened more than she commanded. Worlds that had never trusted royalty trusted her. Because she did not ask them to kneel. One evening, Elias found her on the balcony watching the stars. You ever regret it? He asked. She considered the question. Power offered without consent is a cage, she said. Here I am free. No longer non-threatening. They refused to be small just because someone else said they were. And because of that, thrones trembled. Elias never asked for statues or titles. Neither did Celira. But when new worlds joined the alliance, when disputes were settled without war, when quiet systems finally spoke without fear, a simple truth spread across the stars. If humanity stood beside you, you were not alone. And if humanity stood against you, it was already too late. On a quiet night, Elias and Celira watched Earth rise over the horizon, blue and bright. "They sent you here to disappear," Elias said. Celira nodded. "Instead, they found you." "They found us,"